All right, I guess we can get going here. We'll get us started. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming and joining. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be part of this year's second Tennessee Sustainable Spirits webinar entitled Recycling and Materials Management in the Spirits Industry. This webinar is being put on by the Tennessee Sustainable Spirits Program in collaboration with the Southeast Recycling Development Council and one of our own Sustainable Spirit members, Mountain Distillery. My name is Mark Valencia, and I'm an environmental scientist for the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices here at TDEC. I will be hosting the webinar today for our wonderful speakers. Everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise, but if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I will work on getting them answered. So if you click on the little chat feature, I will make a little comment. And that's where you can field some questions. We might have to check them after each participation. To give an overview of what is going to be covered today, this is the second of our 2 webinars for the year, and we will cover how spirits producers can address recycling and materials management in operations. Attendees will also have the opportunity to learn more about the current state of recycling in the Southeast and unique strategies for managing materials that may traditionally be sent for disposal at a landfill. The Southeast Recycling Development Council works to unite industry, government, and non-government organizations to promote sustainable recycling in the Southeast. Billy Kaufman, President and CEO of Mountain Distillery, will be discussing ways to reduce waste based on his experiences and practices at his distillery in Woodbury, Tennessee. Our presenters have a wealth of knowledge and experience that will help us better understand recycling and materials management in the spirits industry. To begin this program, my name is Mark Valencia again, and I will start off with discussing the Tennessee Sustainable Spirits Program within TDEC. So I think several of you have heard of our program before. A quick background, I am with the Department of Environment and Conservation for the state of Tennessee, with a little background on what we do within the department. Our office, the Sustainable Spirits Program, is housed in the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices. So if you look at this structure, if you look between the Bureau of Environment and Bureau of Parks and Conservation, we kind of sit between those entities. So the Bureau of Environment is more of our enforcement side of things, and the Bureau of Parks and Conservation oversees our 56 state parks and our 85 natural areas. This is a little introduction to what we do over at the Policy and Sustainable Practices. We do a lot of programmatic work related to improving sustainable practices for private, public entities, and we do additional policy work, and we oversee things as environmental justice and other programs like that. One thing I'd like to be clear is the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices is one of the few non-regulated entities within the Department of Environment and Conservation. So all the programs we have are more or less voluntary, and we are not in the business of telling people what to do. We have zero control over anything like that within the Department of Environment and Conservation. Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices is broken down to 3 different divisions. So there's state government, institution, business team, and the community team. The Tennessee Sustainable Spirits Program is within the business team because that's mainly working with businesses within the state. Tennessee Sustainable Spirits is a voluntary program that assists wineries and wine growers, breweries, and distilleries in increasing sustainability by promoting best practices, providing technical assistance, and developing relationships. So this program is strictly, it's free for any producer within the state of Tennessee, and again, it's a free membership program, and we don't have any enforcement control over any of these programs. So this is strictly voluntary. Benefits of becoming a member: you have unique branding. So if you look on the right, you can see our Tennessee Sustainable Spirits logo. Once you become a member, you can proudly display that logo any way you see fit within your organization. We recognize all our producers on our website, and there's an interactive map to learn more about each producer that's a member of the program. We often do articles on our members, and usually we'll have some form of a press release with our new members, and it gets a lot of immediate attention. We also provide free technical assistance, so when we do welcome a new member, we usually provide them some a sustainability report with recommendations, and that's where we can provide some additional technical assistance. Every new member gets recognized, and we like to host a party at the end of every year, and we're going to be talking to our current members to see if we're willing to be able to do a on-site recognition program in sometime this fall. So if you're a member, please look out for me giving you a call or shooting you an email just to follow up with that. And also, we have a vast web pages of online resources. So if you ever go to our website, within the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices under Sustainable Spirits, we have a lot of resources for producers and for any citizen who's more interested within about the program. There's some additional, promotional material that we have for the program. So on the left, you see these bottle hangers. These are made out of recyclable or compostable seed paper. So there's wildflower seed embedded in the paper, and these hangers can hang over the neck of a bottle. In the middle is a window cling, so you can display your membership logo. And on the bottom right are coasters that are made out of recycled tire rubber. Membership may be attained by fulfilling a range of sustainability requirements that are and we cover water conservation, reducing air water pollution, increased waste reduction, and expanding upon community involvement and education. So the process to become a member, you submit a basic application. This is a one-page application just giving you the general information on your facility. We do ask that you submit the year before utility data and production data, because this data we will use to establish a baseline on where you stand with national and international averages. You would also be asked to submit a checklist. So this checklist I'll show in a couple more slides. And it has 49 elements to the checklist, the sustainability checklist, and you have to meet a minimum of 25 of those elements on the checklist. So if you are able to manage to check off at least 25 of those elements, that's all you need to be part of the program in addition to the other information. Once we get all that information, we'll do a review of the application, the data, and the checklist. We will do a TDEC internal compliance check because we are part of TDEC. We want to make sure that you are in compliance with any regulatory bounds that you may be within TDEC. And if you aren't, you can't become a member. You cannot become a member at that time, but we will work with you to get you into contact with whoever you need to get back into compliance. And as soon as you're back in compliance, you can become a member. Once we do all that, we will reach out to you to set up an on-site visit, and this is where we will verify the application and the checklist with you. We'll do a walk through your facility and just take some notes on what we observe. From there, we will develop a sustainability report based on all that data, the site visit, and any other questions and answers we may have while we're there. This sustainability report is quite detailed. We'll make several recommendations based on our observations in the checklist. And if you are ever interested in pursuing any of the recommendations we make, we can help and provide some of the technical assistance associated with that. Once that report's made, that's when we accept you into the program. So this is just a quick overview of the checklist. There's 4 pages to it, and you can see that we cover water, air, waste. It's super simple. You just walk through your facility and check off what you see that you have going on at your facility. And then we also cover energy, sourcing, community, and maintenance. That is my portion. I'm going to introduce Will right now, and he's going to go on to the next portion of this program. So Will Stager has been the Executive Director of the Southeast Recycling Development Council for 11 years. CERDIC's mission is to unite industry, government, and non-government organizations to promote sustainable recycling in the Southeast. Will Stager graduated from the University of North Carolina with a double major in economics and mathematics. After selling the excavation business he built and operated for a decade, he was the solid waste director for Transylvania County, North Carolina for 16 years. While there, he started the recycling program, built the first lined landfill in North Carolina mountains, implemented a PAYT, and established permanent HHW and electronics collection. So Will, you're more than welcome to start whenever you like.
Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to be here. And I guess that I should remember that if my bio is going to a non-solid waste audience, a PAYT is a pay-as-you-throw program where people actually had to pay by the number of bags they brought to our convenience centers after that having been a free service. That was one of the harder transitions I've been through in my life. But that probably didn't bring a lot of recognition in this audience, and I apologize for not catching that. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Just to briefly talk about who CERTIC is, I'll show you our sponsors on the next slide, please. CERTIC, you heard our mission about uniting government and industry to promote sustainable recycling. We do work in between those two sectors of our economy. You see here those, we have about 100 members. These are our sponsors. And I'd just like to disclose, you know, as we all should, where does our money come from as we work these efforts. In addition to our sponsorships, we do contract work at times for some trade associations. We frequently do contract work for the EPA, and for the previous 5 years, we provided technical assistance to TDEC. We certainly enjoyed that work and hope to be able to renew that in the future. Next slide. As we start talking about where is recycling, I'm sure you've seen a lot of these headlines that things aren't working well, and there's been just an extraordinary about media coverage to that. And with the next slide, I'm really going to tell you that this is not true. To borrow a term thrown around lately, it really is fake news. When these stories come up, I inevitably go dig deeply into it and find that the reporter has been talking to one municipality that's in a negotiation with the material recovery facility that's providing processing services for them, and it has an awful lot to do with what the price is going to be for where they're going. With the next slide, I'll show you indeed recycling is working. This is research that our organization has done with support from US EPA, but we've identified in the Southeast 360 manufacturers that rely upon the materials that are commonly accepted in recycling programs. And they're in those facilities, they're taking this recovered material and making new consumer products. This is, as you can see, it's $40 billion a year is a significant part of our economy here, and this is 98,000 employees, and these are manufacturing jobs. I mean, the manufacturing jobs are the holy grail of the economic development community, as opposed to our service sector, which is important, but this is the manufacturing sector, and these facilities are all paying their property taxes, and it's just it's thriving and running well. What brought about a lot of this mixed information in the next slide is, as you've heard a lot about China, China on effective January 1, 2018, did impose a ban on a lot of the recycled material that was being shipped to them. Most of this originated on the west coast of the United States. There was a very favorable way to get it there, in that we had a lot of containers bringing manufacturing goods from China to the United States, and the containers had to return, and there wasn't enough of our manufacturing sector sending stuff back to China, so the recycling world was able to get some very inexpensive freight to move that back. But to get this in perspective, of all the recycling programs in the country, 70% of that is consumed domestically. And of what we did export, only half of that went to China. And China's ban didn't eliminate everything. It did cut off our mixed paper and some of our plastics, but it was less than 15% of what impacted, and a lot of that found other sources or other outlets in Indonesia, Vietnam, and other places. And indeed, in the year following National Sword, we actually consumed more paper than the year before, and we exported for sale more paper than the year before. Next slide. But what did happen with China's actions is it was a restriction in our supply. In our demand. the supply of our materials is very inelastic. Our participants in recycling put out the same amount of material every week, every month. You know, there's some peaks in aluminum cans after the 4th of July and probably after New Year's and Super Bowl, but all of that's very stable and predictable. So when we take this 10 to 15% out of the demand side that China put in place, with their policies put in place, it upset the scale, and we saw some price drops, some very dramatic price drops that led to the processors that are sorting out the materials collected to have to go back and start charging the municipalities more, and that led to a lot of the newspaper stories. The material still moved into the manufacturing sector, but it wasn't worth as much for a period of time. And we are dealing with market issues, and there's a lot of things that affect it, not just how much policy comes in place for restrictions, but things move with seasons, changes in currency values, logistics, and most importantly, that I think gets lost in a lot of our discussion is what are the alternatives to using recycled material. And obviously, most of our consumer goods can be manufactured with virgin materials if that's what we choose, and recycling has to compete with that. So when we see oil exploration having some very advantageous tax benefits and such, and that keeps the price of oil low, then our plastic prices are going to be down, because if they go too high, our plastic producers will just switch back to virgin. So we deal with that on a regular basis, and to a lesser extent that happens with all of the materials. Just for example, in the next slide, I just want to look at a little of our pricing history for what we call OCC. This is old corrugated cardboard. This is the boxes that Amazon brought to your doorstep. These are the boxes at the back of the grocery store, other retail, manufacturing, and I'm sure you in the spirits industry are generating a lot of OCC in your businesses too, as your supplies and other materials come in. But tracking this over the last, what is now 18 years of data, you can see this goes up and down a lot. And frequently it goes down faster than it comes back up. Even when it's at its lowest, and as we were a year and a half ago with OCC trading in the mid-20s per ton, the material still went into the truck and went down the highway and into a mill where it was made into new paper. I didn't bring graphs for mixed paper, but mixed paper even in late 2008 went into the minus territory. Processors paid for the material to be loaded on the truck to go to the mill. Everybody said there's no demand, but the bales went on the truck, went into the mill, and were made into new products. It just didn't, the price was very low. Now, the paper mills loved it because they were actually getting paid to receive their feedstock. And with that, we saw quite a response in the paper industry that they have expanded their capacity. There was a lot of new investment, and even China itself, many Chinese companies are investing in the United States to buy recycled material here and do the initial processing. They may take plastic and make it into pellets that they'll then ship pellets back to China that will put recycled content into their injection mold machines to make new products, or they'll process our bales of OCC or mixed paper and make a paper pulp that they'll dry and ship back and use in their paper mills. By making that step, they're no longer importing scrap, they're importing a manufactured product, and so that's where it's going. When all of the dust settles from National SOAR, China's program of import restrictions, when all of that settles, I predict we will really look back and say it was good for us. It brought us to cleaning up our materials to a better standard. It is bringing this new investment into facilities in the United States. It's reducing the amount of contaminated material that we were shipping across halfway around the world. If our contamination rates were as high as 20%, that meant every 5th container that we shipped for nothing. And so we've got an environmental footprint that we're gaining by shipping cleaner material and therefore fewer containers. And when we've got all this investment and the new jobs created here, so we're coming out of this well, and we're seeing the prices come back up now, exceeding what our 15-year average is, our 17-year average. I'm looking forward to a strong market for our material in the coming years, but it will remain volatile and have its ups and downs. What I would offer to this audience and to you in the spirits industry of things that I see that would be helpful for you, how to plug into this. We go to the next slide, please. You know, the first thing you need to do is to evaluate what you've got, what waste you're generating. And I'm pretty sure TDEC's got services for this. We can connect you with some, but you really need to do an objective waste audit to identify what's coming out of your facility and to know how much you do have. I mean, that's, you can't manage what you don't measure, and this is going to be one of the first steps. Once you've done that, for many of the common recycled materials, we've got lots of markets for that. For some of the more specific or non-mainstream materials that you generate, I would offer that there are 2 waste exchanges that cover our area. The Tennessee Materials Marketplace is hosted by TDEC. It's an online service where you may find a buyer for what you have just by going there, or failing that, you may put up some materials that you've got offered to find a home for, whether it's for sale or for pay to go somewhere, and other buyers will find that, and that's been a successful service. And then there's the Southeastern Waste Information Exchange that performs much of those same services. It is operated by a private concern, but funded by the state of Florida, but it services the whole Southeast. It's very active, and I certainly commend both of these exchanges to you once you've completed your waste audit. I also look at what you can do to cooperate and collaborate with each other through this association you have here, but maybe taking that to the next level. The brewers in Western North Carolina, where I am, and we've got an awful lot of beer producers here now, which is not a bad thing. I certainly enjoy it on weekends. If we go to the next slide, looking at some of these issues, they came together and formed a cooperative that really looks at how they can manage the materials, what they can do, and a lot of what they've been able to do is they may have small quantities of certain materials. I mean, in a brewery, it would be very hard to save up enough shrink wrap to make a truckload, or the same with some of your strapping. But with all of the brewers around saving up their material and then running something like a milk run to get it aggregated and loaded, they do then approach the trailer load quantity, which is sort of the magic number you need to have a product that's going to have a good market. So there's a lot of materials that you've got in these quantities that working with the cooperative, there's a very strong demand. The shrink wrap is sought for by there's an Eastern Tennessee company that's making some lumber and furniture out of it. Trex decking that most people have heard of is made out of this type of film. There's several outlets. Your super sacks, there's a strong market for super sacks in Lower Alabama, and by forming the cooperative, you get together and are able then to aggregate and have those truckload quantities. You know, the cooperative has the issue to look. Many of you are going to be facing some of the same obstacles and problems as your competitors, and working together you can overcome them. There are other successful co-ops in the beer industry, the one here in North Carolina that I referenced. I also have been made aware of others in Maine and Colorado. And lastly, I would just, in my next to last slide, I guess, just to look beyond waste management of what else can you do. Is it possible for you to access renewable electricity? What can you do to drive markets for recycling? Can you spec recycled content to some of your suppliers? Can you make it a favored supplier, or have it score as you look to buy your materials coming in, and that, not just for packaging and print, but even for maybe some of the products you may be using. You know, just anywhere you can use recycled content, you're helping to close that loop and make the whole system work. Then look at, you know, how to, you know, what can you do to reduce water use? What can you do with converting your lighting to LED? And what certifications are available for you as an operator in your industry to demonstrate that you are operating a green facility. And with that, I'm glad to be here. We'll have any, I think we're taking questions at the end, or now, I don't know. My contact information is in the last slide, and I certainly invite you to reach out or with any questions, and feel free to become involved in the work that we do.
I think we had a few comments come in, so I'll run them really for you right now.
Okay.
I know a challenge for our industry is not paper goods recycling. We have a challenge with gas recycling and not being able to find an affordable option, as even wineries in Nashville are being quoted large costs to pick up relatively small amounts of glass. It's even harder for the rural wineries to find options.
That's the question. Glass presents a lot of problems, and I know you've got a lot of production that results in bottles that are not going to go to market. And from Tennessee, it's a long way to the glass processor in Atlanta. Strategic Materials in College Park, right near the Atlanta airport, is where the material needs to go. It's a very limited market, and it's a long ways away, and it's a material that doesn't have a lot of value. One thing that we've seen that can help that is to work with a local recycling processor, and this happened in Raleigh and Asheville in North Carolina, where the Glass Packaging Institute actually gave grants to material recovery facilities, processors, to build bunkers just to receive glass. And the breweries, particularly in Asheville, take their off-spec materials to that bunker, and from there, since it's not mixed up in the single-stream recycling, it's a cleaner material, that's getting it to Atlanta. That's a model that could possibly work, and I would be glad to follow up with individuals or with your whole spirits group about strategically looking at what can be done. There's a lot of investment going into glass infrastructure from the Glass Packaging Institute or the Glass Recycling Coalition, sponsored by GPI, and Owens, Illinois also is very involved in putting some funding into some programs around as well. The insulation industry is involved in the Glass Recycling Coalition, and that's an industry that does have a presence in Tennessee. So I think we could work on that to improve what you've got now. There are logistics and other problems, but we have been able to solve them in 2 markets, and I think we could continue that if there's interest.
Great, thank you, Will. I believe that's all we have right now. So we'll move on. So my next presenter is Billy Kaufman, President and CEO of Short Mountain Distillery. Billy is a 20-year Short Mountain resident who hails from the distant land of Beverly Hills in California. When Billy came to Cannon County, he began farming with local moonshiners who encouraged his interest in alcohol production. After collecting over 800 signatures of registered voters, Billy was able to have a ballot referendum, and local residents turned over the Prohibition-era liquor laws, bringing legal spirits production back to the county after almost 100 years. Billy then created and was the founding president of the Tennessee Distillers Guild, which started the Tennessee Whiskey Trail 2 years later. Billy's next project is the creation of the Short Mountain Greenway, which will restore the headwaters of Dry Creek back to their natural state. So Billy, it's all yours.
Awesome. Hello, attendees. I see some people I know out there, so hello to you, friends. I don't have any special magic sustainability advice as far as what we do at Short Mountain. It's a lot of little stuff and relationships with our community that allow us to be a sustainable spirit member. So I think most of the distilleries that I know, and breweries, maybe wineries too, they produce a lot of spent mash. And if you live in Tennessee, I'm sure you've been approached by farmers or someone who wants that mash for their livestock. And of course, we're flying over the restaurant right now. So we just, give all of our mash to local farmers and allow them access to it with a little help of a mash wagon. So also with our cardboard, we have a special wagon for that. So sometimes like a little bit of assistance helps local people access some of the recyclables that they maybe wouldn't normally be able to have access to. So I'm showing some video right now of our property, and you can see it's a very vast property. We have about 300 acres, and we started off as a working farm, as a cattle farm, and we had the cattle eating the mash, and we were making hay for them. And very recently, I've started just focusing on our visitors and tourism. So I made sort of a bold move recently, and I sold all of our cattle. And what we're going to do is open up the property that you've just seen in that video to visitors. So it's a beautiful property, and not only is it home to the distillery, but it's home to lots of animals, wild animals, old growth forests. So we are continuing our trend of being a sustainable green distillery, and we are going to be creating a greenway on the property, which will encircle you can see it right here, a stream restoration project where 5 different streams come into the headwaters of Dry Creek, and that flows all the way to the Caney Fork. So our property is the headwaters of this area, of that stream, and we are in the process now of restoring it to its pre-agricultural state. So what I really see as sustainability is preserving our natural resources to be able to share with our visitors. So not only are we a distillery, but we are a venue for people to come to and experience open spaces that just like an hour away don't exist. So I always said that Cannon County's best resource is space, and you can see we have a lot of it. Someone said earlier that they were having trouble with like finding places to take small amounts of glass. I have a suggestion for that. At our distillery, we just make those boxes of unused bottles accessible to visitors that we contact on social media, and we put them out. And I've had an entire pallet of bunk bottles get taken by people for craft projects. We have a company in Murfreesboro, Borough Blend, which specializes in making candles, and they'll take these bottles and cut the tops off of them and fill them with wax and some sort of scent, and they sometimes will sell the candle for more than the contents of the bottles that was originally in it. So, you know, these candles go for a lot of money, and I've seen people turn the bottles into chimes and blow them into different shapes and stuff. So there is a market out there that you may not find as reliable as a recycling center that could take this glass and use it for whatever it is, but it is out there and in your community, and people are willing to take the bottles. You just have to make things accessible for them. Oh, we're going back in time. So my advice for the small distilleries, wineries, and breweries is use social media to reach out to your local community and find those connections close to you that may find value in the cardboard, in the bottles, in the mash, and then other than that, do what you can to be a green, sustainable facility. You know, we use organic products when possible. We don't pollute our environment. You know, the last image you saw was a map of our property, and we try and keep our footprint small. So that's an expansion project that shows cabins, but we're still keeping, you know, 90% of the property open and wild and available for hiking or nature. So this is not an existing buildings right now, but that's an expansion project. So I would like to say also that there were some people when this program opened up that thought it was some sort of state plot to secretly audit, you know, our facilities. And I can tell you from experience and being a member for a few years now, that's not what's going on. And these guys are straight shooters, and they just are looking to support your business with marketing, and they're not going to interfere in your inner workings. Hey, Greg, Mark, you uses the bottles for alcohol near your brand, or is it even a concern? Greg, that's not a concern to me at all. He said that, do you mark through labels to make sure nobody reuses the bottle for alcohol under your brand, or is it even concerned? It never occurred to me that somebody might do that. I don't know. It's not, maybe you're more cautious than me, but I don't think anyone is going to do that. They would, maybe they would fill up my bottles with your product and try and sell it and make a profit. That's a joke. So anyway, so I'll just say thank you to the people who, yeah, that's funny. So he's laughing at my joke, so no offense taken. So anyway, I would like to thank the sustainable spirits industry and Caleb and Mark and everyone who made this possible. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But again, we're a small distillery, and we just make those connections with local people to recycle. I think if you try to recycle, you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Billy. I'll leave it open for a few more seconds if anyone has any additional questions. If there are no more questions, I'd like to go ahead and thank our speakers again for taking the time to inform us on this important topic. I'd like to also thank everyone that registered and was part of the webinar audience. This webinar recording and presentation slides will be available on our website, but if you have any further questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is listed right there. And a follow-up email will be sent out next week with the slides. I would like to thank everybody. Thank you, Billy, and thank you, Will, for participating in this. And thank you, everybody, for attending.